This first talk is on something near and dear to my heart. Bum, 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 the Silicon Valley. And one of the interesting things about this talk is that the person that's going to come and talk about Silicon Valley has actually been there. Not only has she been there, she's lived there, and she has worked there. So, I'd like you all to put your hands together and give a very warm welcome to Annika, our first speaker. Annika, welcome aboard.
Thank you, and good morning. Good morning. Thank you. So we're talking about Silicon Valley, and I guess all of you have heard about that, right? That little small area over there in California. One of the most hot innovation hubs in the world, and actually the region that produces most unicorns in the world, but now pushed and pressed from China. Actually, Beijing is on the second place now. So it's happening a lot, and it's happening fast in the world and changing economic power balance. But we're going to talk about Silicon Valley today and the Silicon Valley secret sauce for success. And it's about companies in Silicon Valley, not the region as such. That is also very interesting, but the focus today will be on companies. And this is relevant for all of you. If you're a startup, we're going to talk about the secret sauce of Silicon Valley that I think is how they run companies. How they run companies. That is mostly, it's more interesting, I would say, than maybe the technology innovation happening in Silicon Valley that everyone knows about, right? If you think about Silicon Valley, you think about technology innovation. How many of you would think about management innovation when I say Silicon Valley? Raise up. Oh, 3, 4, 5 people. Great. Okay, so you think the technology innovation is the most important thing, or maybe the rest of you. But in fact, these companies, the innovation giants of the world, they would never be who they are if they are not running the company in a different way. And that was the most interesting insight I got a couple of years ago when I was more or less living with Google for a year. And then after that, went into Facebook and Tesla and a number of other companies. And just realized that these companies are run in a whole different game, in a whole different way. And it's relevant as a startup because if you want to be one of these innovation giants, you should at least understand the basic of that new model. And if you're a VC, you should definitely have this in mind if you want to invest in a company that could become one of the new innovation giants. And if you're one of the incumbents, you might be in a quite desperate situation right now and want to change to this model. So that is relevant for you too. So let's start this presentation with the incumbents. We live in a world economy right now where incumbents are having a quite tough time. They're trying to survive. And one of the reasons for that is you guys, the startups and the VC industry. It's quite easy today to start a startup and start a company. It's quite easy today to scale due to internet technology. We have seen it over and over again. Startup that, is building values, billions of dollars in just a couple of years. It happened, and it happened over and over again. And in fact, what happens is on the Fortune 500 list, the average lifespan for a company is decreasing, and had decreased by 50 years over the last century. It's down to 15 years now. It's forecasted to decrease even more. And in fact, the current list of Fortune 500 companies are expected to be reduced. 50% of these companies are expected to disappear from the list within the next 10 years. It's huge. Within the next 10 years, 50% of the companies on the current list, Fortune 500 list, are expected to be gone from the list and exchanged by new companies. That is huge. It never, ever happened that fast before. We are living in an economy where innovation and entrepreneurship are the key words. The reason is that these guys have problem is that they can't change fast enough. And then you might think that this is not relevant for me as a startup because I'm changing like every, hour. I have to run crazy fast and everything is changing all the time. But in fact, if you are going to scale, you might end up as these guys. And why can't they change fast enough, you think? I call it the success syndrome. And there, I can't, yeah, there it is. I call it the success syndrome. The success syndrome is something that was identified by a Stanford professor, Charles O'Reilly, that is a dear friend of mine. The thing is that you might be here right now. You might be pivoting. You might be doing trial and error. Try to find the great product market fit. And when you find that, yoo-hoo, you get success, right? And you start to grow. You start to get, money, profitability. You start to grow in size. You might not be 100,000 employees. That might be the old age. But you might be a number of thousand. Who knows? You also is aging. You're aging. You become older. And what happened? Here's the problem. So far, everything is good, right? You're earning money. You're doing profit. You're great. You're king in the world. You're becoming bigger. You're now 10, 15 years old. And what happened? You are building inertia. Inertia is resistance to change. And every organization in the world is a victim of this illness. It's like the flu. No one can protect itself from it, but you can plan to protect yourself. By being conscious, you can work against inertia, and that is what you will have to learn to do in order to succeed long term. Inertia is both building in resources. You build a brand, you build skills in employees, you build machines and equipment, you build, you get money. That is maybe the most flexible resource. But all the others are more or less could be steered to the business model you have today. Even a brand is usually associated with what you do today, right? And it's dairy to come out with something new that can be, going against that brand position of yours. Structural, you have been building processes, a design of your organization that make it super efficient to just deliver the business model you have today, right? The partners you have. The thing is that the default by a process is that it tries to control itself so it's not changing. So the more processes you build, and then we can add on the lean movement, which really taught us, how to build processes and scrutinize processes and do these super efficient. And after 5 years of lean, you don't really want to change them, right? It's not really very happy thought to change something you have been working on for 5 years. And then you have the culture thing that is even harder to move, even harder to change. Your norms, how you think about what is right, what is wrong, how do we do things here, how do we prioritize? You hear it all the time. That is not how you do things here. Oh, we tried that, but it didn't work, right? It's norms. Everything of these you will have to question over time because it might not be relevant anymore. But the problem is, it's usually very, very hard to change. And if the market is not if the market is not totally stable, I would say, you will fail. And do we live in a very stable market today with very little change? No, we don't. We live in a Schumpeter economy where we see disruption after disruption after disruption as driven by technology. This kind of changes, you might expect them for every 5th year. You might need to transform your business model in a minor or a major degree. So, I talk about a new generation companies, a new management model that is much more fit for the economy that we have today, a very volatile, fast-changing, technology-driven economy. And I've been written 4 books, 4 different management books, which I would recommend you to read. Some are even free. If you understand Swedish, you can download the Google model for free. I've been studying a number of innovation giants in the world, not only American, but also Chinese, because this model is spreading. It's all over now. And you can see them among the new generation companies. These companies are not small. None of these would be called a startup or a small. Google has 85,000 people today. So it's a large corporation, but they still act and think as a startup. And how is that even possible? I will share with you some of the tricks they do, some of part and element of the new model. But if you want more details, you need to go to my books. So what differ between this new generation of companies from the old one, where I was working before I went to Silicon Valley? I would say, and I would say again, I don't know why it doesn't work. Everything. I would say everything is different. If you would study a company like a number of components or number of elements, like the top management / the board, and you shouldn't forget the board's responsibility for the company's ability to adapt and change. They have a huge responsibility, and I would say usually they don't take that. We have culture, we have people that we consciously select and bring into the company, and we can select these differently. We have a daily leadership. We have organizational design, how we design our organization. We have how we incentivize and promote people in our organization. We have systems and mechanisms how we learn. And we also have different ways of innovating. Some are just innovating internally. Some actually use external innovation in a very high degree. And the incumbents are more and more and more working with external innovation. And you can guess whom. Who is the most important external partner for big incumbents today, you think? Is it universities, research institutes, customers, suppliers? No, it's startups. Startups and big incumbents are suddenly starting to get into the same game. Both need each other. The incumbent needs the startup to not die. The startup needs the incumbent to scale. It's a perfect symbiosis. But some companies still believe that you should do innovation through your R&D and internally, because that was the old way of doing it. Okay, so let's go into this model a little bit. Let's talk about the founders. If you think about it, if you looked at these companies that I was presenting, more or less most of these companies have their founder, the entrepreneur, in the top, either as a share of the board or still working executive in some role. That is a very important insight. They have the founder's mindset in the top. In many countries, in many cultures, we believe that a founder should be exchanged by a professional CEO after a while. That might not be the right decision to make at all. In Silicon Valley, we tried that. We had a 10-year period where we tried that. Many companies, they failed, and they got the founder back. Some saw a drop of market share, or the share was dropping by 30% in value before the founder came back again and the share started to increase in value again. The other thing is that these guys are very focused on innovation and growth. So it's embedded in their DNA. It's always trying to look around the corner to go for the next thing. And if you think about it, the other trick, except for having the founder as, still like the big, counter force. If you believe that inertia is one big force, these guys are maybe the only one, if they're still there, that can counter that force. They say that, okay, I understand. It would make sense to invest all our money in our core business, but now I decide as the core owner that we are going to do this. Risky investment. So they become maybe the only counter force that can change the company. and make it adaptable. The other thing is that these guys and many of these companies, founders, they create a number 2, or they might not even be number 3 people in the top, because they want to focus on the long term, the next step, the around the corner thing, while they have someone else focusing on the day-to-day quality problem, whatever. If you're the CEO, don't let you be there. Don't let you down in that black hole and focus on quality and delivery and sales and whatever. That should be possible to be done by a really skilled number 2. Okay, so, is it somewhere else? I should... there it is. I have the source differently. Yeah, finally understand. Thank you. Okay, so one thing that they do, these founders, is that they have a mission that matters. And with the millennials, you know, it's even more important. People don't go and they don't take a job just to take a job. They want to have a big mission. They want to do something meaningful in their life. And this mission is going to be the driver of innovation. As one of the interviewees said at Google, we have a business that drives, you know, the money coming in, but that is not the mission of the company. It's not to be a search engine. That is the mission of companies, to organize all the world's information, and within that is to be an innovation engine. We're going to change the world. And if every employee think that, it will drive innovation in the company. The other thing, the other tool is the 70-20-10. How many of you have heard about the rule, the 70-20-10? Yeah, it's a number of you. Okay, in Sweden, it's well established now because I've been talking to 75,000 people there. But this is a great tool for any manager in a firm. Think about it as 70% of your time is focused on your core business. That is where you earn your money today. 20% of your time and your employees' time should be focused on strategic project correlated and, you know, close to your core. So it could be to expand your new market. It could be to get it online, or what it could be, you know, something like that. 10% of your time should be spent on venture project. It's something that could be the next billion-dollar business. It's super high risk. It's very uncertain. It's high probability it might fail. But you should at least have 10% with something going on that can sort of be the savior for future growth. So you work with a portfolio mindset, even within the firm, not only as a VC, but also within the firm. Google work with this, LinkedIn work with this. It's a lot of companies that work with this method. Okay. They're also great at sensing threats and opportunities, to look around the corner. And one thing that is driving that is paranoia. So if you're the CEO of a startup, even if you're a startup, you might have 5 years. Okay, you might have 5 years. That is what the Silicon Valley startup thinking, at least. After 5 years, there will be new startups, and they will ride on the latest technology. So if you are not with the trend and have been following and sensing enough, you might be gone, even if you're a startup. So paranoia, believe that you can be killed. Know what is happening in your area, technology-wise, consumer behavior-wise, regulation-wise. You have to know. You have to be intelligent. You also need to be very good to quick test and learn. So these companies, they build parallel structures. They build parallel structures so they can actually test and learn quickly if this new opportunities is something they should invest in or not, and how it would or should be molded so it fit their business and their market. They also focus very much on low-cost experimentation. As you understand, you can't take a lot of capital to do testing and experimentation. It has to be very cheap. A lot of engineers in Google today is just developing test routines. Very low cost, fast test routines, so you can test. Finally, you have to be great on execution. As I said, you might need to change every 5th year in minor or major degree. And if you are lousy on execution and can't execute a change as a leader, it will be hard to survive. And the time for doing transformation is just going down. This is an example again from Google when they went from a mobile company to an AI company. It took them 7 months to retrain 50,000 engineers and prepare the rest of the organization for artificial intelligence. 7 months. When they went from a desktop to a mobile company, it took them 9 months. So it's going down. To be excellent in execution. Okay, but these companies are not just having, skills and abilities that are, quite unique. They also build a culture, which is focused on maybe very different things. First users, then money. Find the problem. Make sure that the new thing that you find is attractive for users, and then find out, how to earn money on it. Don't start with the business case. Think big. Disruptive new stuff is usually maybe 10x cheaper. So think about how can you decrease the cost by 10 times. For example, the drone today that is like big like planes, with no pilots. You can buy 11 of these planes for the same cost as one with a pilot. So 10 time, reduction of cost. Be bold and disrupt. I never heard any European person not even in startups, saying that we are aiming to disrupt ourselves continuously. But you hear that in Silicon Valley. Learn fast. Sorry, it was a little bit slow there. Learn fast. It's super important to learn fast. Speed matter, always deliver, and bureaucracy is really bad. Okay, bureaucracy is the killer of innovation and of speed. Oh, I got a small shock there. Okay, regarding people, smart, creative, they are like small CEOs, self-organized. They are very good at technology, but also understand the business. And they are working for the team, very collaborative. So entrepreneurial, want to change the world, very driven, passionate, and excellent to work together. And with that kind of people, you have to have a leadership that is very coaching. I usually compare it to, soccer team coaches. It's a building great team that matters. You say what and why, but you leave the how to the team. They are excellent team players. Many of them have starting companies themselves, have been maybe the founder CEO themselves. You can't go in and do detailed instructions there. And the organization, of course, should be, as I said before, flat, non-bureaucratic. You have a temporary hierarchy, and that you usually have in strategy process, for example, but it coming from the bottom up, going up, take decision, and then it's distilling down again. And you always try to work in small teams that can move fast, small independent teams that are product oriented. So for each product you have teams, and they work cross-functional. And with that, I want to say thank you.
Hold on to that, because we got... All right, we got the Slido thing running, but I've got a question before you run off, which is, this all sounds good, but we heard that if you didn't go to Stanford and you didn't go to Berkeley, forget about Silicon Valley. So how do you find a Sherpa, or what we in New York used to call a rabbi? How do you find someone local? How do you get access to that ecosystem if you're a Nordic startup that wants to go to Silicon Valley?
Okay, so I have at least 2 tips there. One is to use your homeland friends. It's a lot of Danish people over there, Swedish people over there, Norwegian people over there. We help each other and we help our companies. So, for example, we have invested in, I think, like 15 Swedish startups so far, me and my husband, and we also help the companies to get in contact with the right people within Google or Facebook or whatever. So that is one thing. The other thing is to go through local incubators. So there are incubators that are, really interested to get in contact with you. They offer maybe a 5-day program for $1,500, which is nothing. It's like 14,000, Danish kroner for 5 days. In that, you will be scrutinized. Your business model will be scrutinized and looked at from a number of different angles from a Silicon Valley perspective, and you will have a number of mentors that also are angel investors. So if any of these, would be interested in you, they might put in seed money, after that week, more or less. And the incubator will offer you to sit there for the next sort of phase to get an A round as well locally in Silicon Valley. So there are different ways to get in. The worst case is to just go there, but you are too smart to do that. It's too expensive. You don't just go there.
Cool. So get an introduction. Listen, we've got a tight schedule.
Yeah.
You have a plane to catch, and you've got a taxi that leaves in, I believe it was 7 minutes. So if
Yeah.
you're really quick, you can catch Annika between here and the door, but don't get in her way. Big round of applause, please. Thank you. That was great. Cheers.